Welcome to Section 1, Part 2. This is the continuation of Section 1, where we are covering key concepts related to Agile mindset, PRINCE2 Project Management, and the people element, which includes organizational change management as well, which is also known as OCM in short. In Part 2, particularly, we will be covering some additional PRINCE2 Agile key terminology, also the concept of blending project management of PRINCE2 along with Agile ways of working, rather than keeping them isolated. And then we will continue with how to use the performance targets in an agile environment. Then scaling up agile, because agile works in small teams, but then projects may have large number of people. Therefore, we may have multiple agile delivery teams and how it is done. Just a brief view of that. And then we will get into PRINCE2 project management principles and look at the concept of agile maturity and how to assess or measure this maturity as to how much an organization has become mature in agile practices and agile mindsets. And then we will look at the concepts of psychological safety and agile sustainability in the longer run, how agility should remain embedded. That's what it means. And then we move on to organizational change management, or OCM, and who should be involved in OCM. And then conclude with the concept of culture and the leadership, particularly how to lead successful teams. And that comes from the people element of PRINCE2 project management. As we know, there will be 12 questions in the exam out of 40 from section 1. And this is just part 2 of section 1. We begin with some of the terminologies of PRINCE2 Agile. The first is the backlog. Backlog can be either a project backlog or a product backlog. A backlog is nothing but a prioritized list of the requirements for a product as epic user stories or other formats. Let's begin with what a project backlog is. It will contain high-level requirements of the project. These will be written down as less granular requirements. They are also known as epic user stories in the agile world. And these are owned by the chief product owner. Now, there's a lot going on here. We will be taking a deeper look at the project backlog with an example in section 2 on the agile PRINCE2 agile practices. But here we're just giving you an overview. So generally in the beginning of the project, there can be a workshop where the chief product owner who represents the users and is part of the project board will enable a workshop, and wherein there'll be discussion on the main requirements of the project. And again, in the agile environment, emergent requirements occur, meaning requirements keep emerging every now and then. They need to be prioritized in the short term for delivery in frequent iterations. And therefore, at the start, this backlog will contain less granular requirements, and those are known as epics or epic user stories. And therefore, at the start, there may be several epics discussed, and they will be entered into the project backlog. And as the project moves forward, some of the epics will get broken down into more granular formats, and they will be individual user stories or individual specific requirements. So if you remember, you might recollect in part 1, there was an example of an administrator having to manage storage of records and files. And the epic was about having to manage storage space. But then under that epic, there were several specific user stories or requirements, such as ability to delete certain records or ability to archive or shuffle them or whatever. So that's how project backlog will keep on getting updated from time to time. Product backlogs, on the other hand, are with specific delivery teams. Every delivery team or an agile delivery team will have its own product backlog. Again, that will be a cut from the project backlog, but a product backlog is a list of requirements which have to be delivered by a single team. And that will also be sort of emerging based on the project backlog. And for each iteration, the product backlog will be used. Some items from the product backlog will be picked up during the iteration planning, and they will be put into a iteration backlog. if required. Otherwise, they can be marked in the product backlog itself that this will go into the first iteration and this will continue. Meaning in the second iteration, some other items from the product backlog will be picked and then commitments will be done based on estimates of effort that these user stories from the product backlog will be delivered in that iteration via a specific product increment. So both the project backlog and product backlogs will be continuously prioritized and owned by different people. So the project backlog will be owned by somebody more superordinate, such as a chief product owner, whereas product backlog can be owned by like a team manager, usually known as a product owner in PRINCE2 Agile. Or you can even have a team manager taking ownership of the product backlog. But we will take a look at the organization structure afterwards. In section 2, where we have all the practices such as organization practice, and in some of the other practices, we will cover the artifacts such as project backlog and product backlog in more depth. So product backlogs used at the team level, these have individual user stories. Again, there can be some epics here also, but less number as compared to the project backlog, which is for the entire project. And then the product backlog will have eventually user stories coming in. Will be listed in the product backlog. And as explained before, they will be delivered periodically in every iteration. And this is owned by the one or more product owners. Every product backlog is owned by a single product owner. And because there are multiple agile teams, agile delivery teams, there will be multiple product owners, each owning a single product backlog of their team. Now, what is the term benefit? This is another term. We had a peek at it earlier because project outputs result in changes, new capabilities and changes, and those are known as outcomes. And when outcomes are measured and seen as advantageous, those are known as benefits. So for example, there could be a manual sales process in a company, and maybe they decide to create an electronic sales tracking system. So that would be the output or a deliverable. And when they start using the sales tracking system, which is electronic, that might or would have been planned to create certain outcomes such as an improved sales process and the ability to track sales in a better way, an ability to increase sales. Now, when the sales increase is actually measured, that becomes a benefit. So there could be a target benefit as well as an actual benefit compared against the target benefit. So the definition here is the measurable improvement resulting from an outcome that is perceived as an advantage by the investing organization and contributes towards one or more business objectives. For the exam, you have to recollect the theory. Another term that is used in PRINCE2 Agile is a dashboard, which is a commonly used term. You will be generally familiar or would have come across the term dashboard. It's a visual or a graphic, easy to read, even from a distance sometimes if it's posted on the wall or electronic on a system, which basically publishes the progress and performance of the project or a single team. So for the overall project, we would have a project dashboard, and for a single team, we have a team dashboard. So the project dashboard would ideally show the current status of the plan and the releases and the burn charts, the current risks and issues, as well as agile assessment trends. We will be taking a look at the agile assessment known as Agilometer, and also the planning and releases aspect. Team dashboards, on the other hand, displays the team plan, not the overall project plan and its status, but the team plan and its status, which is more like activities and functionalities that the team is working on from time to time. And it'll show the product backlog items, a summary of that. It'll show the status of the current iteration, either in the middle somewhere or at the end, and then the burn charts for that team and the current risks and issues in the team and certain team values and agreements. For example, agreement on how the team together will make decisions or resolve conflicts and so on. And next is an epic user story. This is a well-known term already to you. It's a high level or a less granular requirement, which has not been sufficiently refined or broken down or understood yet. Another example of an epic could be in an airline company, on an airline website, the ability to search flights. The ability to search flights is actually an epic. But when we have to break down this flight search epic, it will have many user stories. One of them could be to specifically search flights by location, by destination, um, starting and ending destinations. And you could have another user story which is about reserving certain meals or refreshments or frequent flyer options. All those are individual stories under flight bookings. So that's how epics need to be broken down into individual, more granular user stories.